Aloha, my name is Shelby Morrison, and I am the Programs and Communications Coordinator at Ikahi Mediation Center. Welcome to our Finding Solutions Growing Peace Brown Bag Lunch Series. Ikahi is a nonprofit community mediation center serving East Hawaii. We were founded in 1983 as a program of the island of Hawaii's YMCA, and in 2006, we became our own independent nonprofit. We empower people to come together, to talk and to listen, to explore options, and to find their own best solutions. To achieve this mission, we offer mediation, facilitation, and trainings just like this one to strengthen the ability of diverse individuals and groups to resolve their interpersonal conflicts as well as their community issues. Our Brown Bag Lunch series is held every third Thursday at 12 noon right here on Zoom, and you can register for each of those on that same Zoom link or Eventbrite link. So our next Brown Bag Talk will be April 17th, and that will be with Jessica Hallahan, where we will continue our stress solving solutions. So Jessica Hallahan will be teaching a brown bag on how to heal from stress, which will be ideal for teams and business professionals working on moving past stress to reach results. That link is going to be in the chat box, so feel free to register for that at the end of today's class. And at the end of today's class, I will also be sending you a short online survey, which greatly helps with our grant funding for this free series. So when I put that survey link in the chat, please take just a moment to give us your thoughts. We'll also send you an email out a little bit later, and I will also include the survey link as well as the video link to today's recording. So without further ado, let me introduce our topic, the Instant Stress Reset. Take back control in just 15 minutes. And our speaker is Miss Diana Bejasa. I apologize if I'm pronouncing that incorrectly, Diana. Diana helps high-performing leaders achieve bold goals without sacrificing health, relationships, or joy. After burnout ended Diana's chef career, she realized that hard work without strategic balance leads to failure, not success. Using cutting-edge AI, energy psychology, and proven systems, her clients reduce stress, reclaim energy, and create fulfilling, sustainable success. Diana's executive coaching business is called Savor Life with Diana. All right, Diana, please take it away.
Thank you so much, Shelby. It's a pleasure to be with you all today. Today, we're going to get into what I call the instant stress reset. This is an opportunity for us to take back control of our stress when it feels like it's running the show, and how we can do it in just 15 minutes, which may sound unconventional, but what we're going to try and do today is a little bit unconventional, but totally works. So I want you to think about what's stressing you out. Maybe it's one of these things on a Post-it note. Maybe you have a million Post-it notes all over your desk. Think about what could possibly be stressing you out. A lot of times I find that there are just a lot of things that are on our minds. And that was definitely how I lived for the first 30 plus years of my life, was with everything kind of just feeling overwhelming and like I couldn't do what I really wanted to do all the time. And sometimes when we have a lot of stress going on, the other thing that can happen that I experienced as well was aches and pains. So I developed chronic back pain. I even had a lot of tension in my jaw. So I found that I was like grinding my teeth at night. Maybe you have experiences of tension physically that you're experiencing too, maybe in your neck, your shoulders, your jaw. These are some of the common things that I find with my clients as well. Another thing that was really hard was I would be so exhausted during the day because I had a hard time sleeping at night. So I relied on coffee. I remember when I worked on Wall Street, I literally would drink like 64 ounces of coffee every single day. And then I would be like wired all day long, have a really hard time sleeping. My mind would be racing with all the emails I had to answer and all the things that I was supposed to do. And then I'd get back to work and I'd feel exhausted again. And so I fueled that cycle of just like caffeine addiction, basically. And today I don't actually drink any caffeine, but that was just one of the byproducts, I guess, of some of the stress reset work that I'm going to share today. Also, like sometimes it feels like when we know that we have a lot of stress, it feels like we're supposed to take a break, right? And we think like, oh, I'm gonna take a vacation. That's gonna help me feel better. I'm gonna get a massage. I used to have such bad stress and anxiety that I would be in the middle of a massage and I would feel more anxious and more stressed because I would feel like, oh my God, I'm supposed to be relaxing and the time is ticking away and I can't relax. Oh my God, I only have 50 more minutes to, now it's 40 minutes, and so I'd be counting down and feeling more anxious about how my time to relax was running out instead of actually feeling comfortable during the massage. And same with vacations. I would take a vacation because people would say, okay, that you'll feel better if you go, you just need to take a vacation. You need to take a break, right? And I would take this break and I would come back and my inbox would be flooded. Like there'd be so many emails and I would feel so overwhelmed. Like, it was as if like in that instant that I returned to work, all of that relaxation I did like was out the window. And so I found that there were all these different ways that stress just kept hitting me. It felt like stress kept just overwhelming me and controlling me and my life. And I didn't feel like I could get out of it, right? It felt like no matter what I did, it would never get better. So maybe you can relate to that. Maybe you have felt that way. Maybe you felt the overwhelm of just so much on your plate, so many things to do, so little time. Um, I really believed to myself that my life was always going to be like that. In case you can't tell by my resting baby biatch face, I was a naturally negative thinker growing up. I rarely, like I was looking through old photos of myself, like rarely was I ever smiling. I just always seemed to have a scowl on my face. I was, not like I had a miserable childhood, but that was just like my face, and I felt like I never was going to be able to live any other way um, because I had always remembered being somebody who had a hard time resting, but also somebody who had a negative mindset. I remember when I was in kindergarten, I don't know if you guys remember nap time. I have an under 2-year-old now, and I think about her naps all the time. But during nap time, I used to feel so anxious. I would look around at all the other kids who were easily sleeping, and I would do that same thing I did during a massage, where I'd be counting down, like, oh, I have 30 minutes left for nap time. I'd be looking at the clock. Oh, I'm still not napping. I'm supposed to be sleeping. And I remember feeling like there was just no way out because I had literally been like this my whole life. Um, Fast forward a couple of years when I went through really extreme burnout, where I kept ignoring the burnout. I kept ignoring how stressed I was. I kept pushing through it, thinking, I don't think I even identified it as burnout. I just kept thinking like, I just got to push through this one thing. I got to push through this one thing and then I'll be fine. Um, but what really woke me up to something being wrong was the fact that I developed all these different forms of chronic illness. So not just low back pain, not just bone spurs and plantar fasciitis. I was breaking out in hives. I was losing my hair. I had de Quervain's disease. I had all these forms of illness and physical issues that had developed. And I was only in my early 30s. This was when I worked as a chef. And I loved the work, right? So that was something that was really interesting because I was so passionate about the work that I did. I loved helping and serving other people so much that when things got stressful and tough, I would just focus on the good stuff, right? I would focus on all the positive things that were going on. And as a result, it would help me push through. But what it ultimately cost me constantly pushing through that stress was my health. Um, as much as I love cooking, I can't work as a chef anymore because of all the physical issues that I developed. I now am mostly well, like you can see, I have a full head of hair and a full hairline, which I'm really happy about. And I'll talk about how the tool that we're going to share today actually is part of that self-healing, really profound. But overall, I just found myself so overwhelmed. I felt like I was stuck in this place. But as a result of getting to that place of really extreme burnout and sickness, I started looking for self-healing modalities, things that I could do, read a lot of self-help books. And I came across this tool, which I'm going to share with you today, that really transformed everything. It was after that point that I eventually became an international speaker, that I reclaimed my health from that place of having chronic illness and autoimmune disease. Of course, they are lifelong now, but for the most part, they're well managed. That person who couldn't even sit still during nap time, I became somebody who could meditate, right? So this was almost like a gateway for me into a completely different life. I never believed I could be an author. You know, I had all these beliefs about I had to accomplish more before I could be an author. And became a published author, spoke in front of groups of thousands of people, and probably perhaps one of the most unconventional or surprising ways that my life has changed as a result of the tool that I'm going to share today is that when I unexpectedly became a single mom, my ex-husband of 10 years, he filed for divorce while I was pregnant. Uh, and that was really traumatic, as some of you, I think, you know, in the mediation world may understand or experience. But this is a photo of the both of us at our daughter's first birthday party. I was the one who threw the party, and I invited him because I felt like it was important. And for me, it was important that she sees that I have a positive relationship with him, regardless of what happened. So I've used this stress reset that I'm going to share with you as well to help me heal through some of the trauma that I've been through. I'm a 9/11 survivor. Um, I've had some crazy things in life happen to me, and instead of letting it turn me into a victim, I've allowed it to create this opportunity for me to thrive more than ever. And this was me on Hawaii News Now back in December talking about holiday stress and burnout. And this was actually when my daughter had a visit with her dad. He took this photo for me. So, you know, our relationship is by no means perfect as co-parents. We definitely go through counseling, all those things. But I feel like I can definitely attribute a lot of the growth that we've had as co-parents, at least for myself, to some of the work that I'm going to share today. So just wanted to share like some of the ways that this has transformed my life. And now it's your time. It's your opportunity to have a transformative experience if you want to. So I'm going to invite you to do an experiment with me. Are you guys in for that? Yeah? Awesome. All right, let's do it. Okay, so I want you to think about that thing that for you is stressing you out most right now. Maybe it's work, maybe it's something going on at home, maybe it's your kids, maybe it's your parents, maybe it's your relationship, maybe it's your pet, you know, I don't know, maybe it's your overfilled schedule. I don't know what you think of as stressing you out most. But I just want you to identify what that thing is. I want you to write it down. Whatever's stressing you out most right now, just write it down. Like, you know, couple words. We're not here to write a book about it today. But we are just writing down what it is that's stressing us out, what we're experiencing, that we want to experience maybe a little bit of release or transformation around right now. So what we're going to do, so we're noticing what's stressing us out right now. And I want you to pay attention to where in your body you actually feel it. A lot of times when we've lived through a lot of chronic stress, one of the things that I find is that we learn how to dissociate from our body. We don't even notice how we feel, because to feel it actually makes the whole thing worse. So the way that we can survive through it is by not feeling it. And I lived that way for, like I was saying, 30 some years. But I'm going to invite you just now, like, get back into your body and pay attention to where that stress that you're feeling that you wrote down is, and write down where it is that you feel it in your body. Maybe it's in your chest, maybe it's in your low back, maybe it's in your shoulders, your neck. Give it a little bit of attention and notice what it feels like. Like, does it feel like if you were to imagine it in your body, does it feel like a weight holding you down? Does it feel like something sharp stuck somewhere in your body? I don't know what it feels like for you. And you don't even have to tell me for you to experience this shift, which is one of the things that I found was so powerful about this methodology, was because some of the trauma that I experienced, like 9/11, there were things that I didn't even remember. And I was still able to experience a release and a healing using the methodology we're going to share today. So just notice that, what it feels like in your body. And then give it a rating. So if you were to give it a rating on a scale from 0 to 10, with 10 being like the most intense distress or discomfort or pain, give it a number. Right now, I'm going to say I have like it feels like a sharp, like plate in the back of my left shoulder blade. So just whatever that feels like for me, I'm going to say it's a 7. Probably some of the stress that I'm experiencing right now is that I used to be a really socially anxious introvert, or I still am an introvert, but I never liked speaking in front of groups. So I remember before I ever did this work, going up in front of a group and completely freezing, having no ability to like speak. I just, and so public speaking was actually one of my fears. And like I mentioned, this tool that I'm going to share with you today actually helped me to overcome that and become an international speaker. So just notice where you feel that stress, that tension in your body. And these are some of the points that we're going to tap on in a specific order, but I'm going to walk you through it as well. Now, if you're at lunch or if you're in an office and you feel a little uncomfortable, like tapping on your body, you can actually just rub. So I will show you how to do either one, but you'll be able to do this really subtly. And what I like about this, so I don't know if any of you actually work in mediation or are in high conflict situations, maybe a high conflict divorce like mine was, you can actually experience the release without anybody knowing. So like right now I am tapping on a point and you have no idea that I'm doing that necessarily, right? And there are other ones that I'm going to show you where you can experience a release and you won't even know, like nobody has to know that you're doing this. Nobody has to know that you're releasing some of the stress in your body. So, all right, let's get started with this experiment. So using 2 fingers, I want you to bend your hand. You'll find a line straight across. And right on the side of your hand, you're going to tap right there. This is actually an acupuncture point connected to your small intestine. You can use just 2 fingers, 3 fingers, and just gently tap. Or if you're trying to hide it, you can just rub. So sometimes if I'm like, you know, like when I had to do mediation with my ex, I kind of hid it and I just like rubbed along the side of my hand like this, just under the table. So it looked like I was just holding my hands, but there I was, like basically getting centered and grounded so that I could make really smart decisions. Because what I find a lot of times when we're in stress is we don't necessarily make the smartest decisions for ourselves. We make decisions that we might regret later. So just tapping on the side of the hand or rubbing along the side of the hand, whatever feels best right now. I just want you to pay attention to that stress in your body, right? To the stress that this thing that has been making you feel overwhelmed. You can see I have my little daughter. Like I mentioned, I'm a single mom. Just whatever that stress is, just allow yourself to feel that. And tap on the side of the hand there. Next point we're going to tap on is on the eyebrow point. So using 2 or 3 fingers, you could do it on one side or on both sides. It's up to you. So one or the other or both. 2 or 3 fingers. If you're at your desk and you don't want anybody to know, you could literally just do this. Like rub on it, right? Just rub. This is actually a point for relationship pain. So this is definitely one that I tapped on a lot as I was navigating and healing through infidelity and all the different things through my divorce. So you can tap right there. Just notice the stress in your body starting to melt a little bit as you tap or as you rub, whatever one feels more comfortable and accessible to you right now. And what I'll say is for you to really experience the shift, you got to actually do the work. You got to actually try this to know whether or not it could work for you. So I invite you to do that if you want. Next is going to be the side of the eye. So right where your temple meets the bone, right where that tender spot is, you can either, like I was saying, you could tap there or you could rub there. And you may notice that like sometimes when you're angry or irritated, you might actually just naturally touch on this point around your temples. This is a rage point. So a lot of times, especially if you have a lot of tension in your jaw, you may feel the tension in your jaw begin to unlock when you're rubbing on this point. Also did a lot of this one in my high conflict divorce. So you just tap or rub, whatever feels better. This is tapping on the side of the eye. Next is under the eye. So right where your eye sockets are, you're gonna feel there's like a tender spot, and then there's the bone. So right along the bone. And I'm gonna tell you an interesting story. So um before I did this kind of work, I actually looked older. I had a lot more wrinkles and other things on my face. And what they found in Chinese medicine was that there was an actual rejuvenation that people were experiencing when they stimulated some of these energy points in their face. So there may be some anti-aging results that come as well, aside from the release of stress. So this point is connected to your stomach meridian. But you may find that just by tapping on one, you still may feel release in your shoulders or in your neck or in your back. We're just gonna tap, or we can rub there. So we could just really secretively just like rub right there. Nobody has to know what we're doing. And I see Darlene yawning, which is always a good sign. Next is under the nose. So 2 or 3 fingers right under the nose. This point is connected to shame. So especially if you may find a release in your physical body at that point as you're just tapping there, 2 or 3 fingers. You can also rub here really easily if you didn't want to tap. Next is going to be the chin point or under the lip. 2 or 3 fingers there. And I want you to just think about that stressful thing that you're experiencing, whatever that looks like for you. Just notice that stress in your body. Breathe through it as you tap. What I find and what I like about this method too is I had a really hard time meditating before, right? I could barely relax during a massage. This was a gateway for me to actually get better at meditating because it helped me reconnect with my mind with my body. And at the same time to release some of the stuck energy, stuck emotion that I was experiencing. Next is going to be the collarbone point. So right where your collarbone notches are here, you're going to go about 1 inch diagonal. You'll feel like a groove there. And you can either tap both sides, one side. If you're being secretive, you can literally just rub. And I want you to just think about that stressful thing that's going on in your life. And breathe through as you're rubbing or you're tapping on that point. This is the favorite point for me. I feel a lot of tension release when I tap here. And next, we're going to tap under the arm. So about a hand's distance from your armpit. For women, this tends to be like right around where the bra strap lies. And you can do 1 hand, 2 hands, crossed hands, not crossed hands. Doesn't matter. Whatever feels best for you. This is connected to your spleen meridian. You can tap here. Just think about that stressful thing that's going on right now. And just breathe through it. And then we're going to tap on the top of the head. So using a flat palm, you can just tap on the top of your head. Maybe relax back in your chair. Close your eyes, breathe. This one's a little harder to do with nobody noticing you, but you could maybe try like rubbing the top of your head. I see you yawning, Darlene and Shirley. That's a great sign. That's a release of energy. And this is also a favorite. I like to do this on my daughter before she goes to sleep. It just releases any tension and helps her calm down a little bit. What I love about this healing method too is it's safe for children. And it's also safe for pets. So if you actually do these points with a pet present, their mirror neurons will actually register a decrease in anxiety and all those different things. So, all right. So that was just our little experiment, a little under 10-minute experiment. Take a couple deep breaths in through your nose, out through your mouth. And I want you to tune back to your body. Think about what was stressing you out earlier and notice how it feels in your body now. So maybe the tension moved. Maybe it's like you don't even feel it. Like the tension I was feeling in the back of my shoulder, I'm like, I don't even think I feel that anymore. And you want to just give it a rating on a scale from 0 to 10, with 10 being the most intense. And so I have you write this down because one of the things that, like I tend to be like a math and science nerd. Before I ever did this work, I worked on Wall Street. I got my degree in accounting finance. I really like statistics and stuff like that. And so to me, it's like cool to see and measure a decrease in the level of stress that I experience or whatever. And this, well, yeah. So just notice if your number went down. Sometimes the reason also that I like to ask people to write down this information is I've experienced with certain clients when we do a healing meditation together, they'll actually tell me after doing the tapping, oh no, I never had any tension around that thing, even though they had maybe felt stuck with it for like 10 years or something like that. We'll do the tapping one time and they're like, no, 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 that's not a problem at all anymore. That was never a problem. And so having it written down is kind of like a reminder of like where you were versus where you are now. So I'd love if any of you are open to sharing your experience. I'd love to hear how that exercise was for you. And I cannot see the chat. I don't think I can, at least. Yeah, I can't see the chat. So if anyone wants to unmute and share, I'd love to hear it. If you want to share.
Darlene shares from the comments, one stress decreased, the other remained the same.
Okay, yeah, okay. Thank you, Darlene. All right, well, I will, if you want to share in the comments, go ahead and I'll read on those later. A lot of times what's really interesting, let's talk about what you actually just experienced, right? Because a lot of times, the very first time I tried tapping, I was like, what just happened? How come I went from like intense rage to not, right? And what's cool about this is like, I didn't even know what you're stressed about. We didn't talk about it. I don't know. So this was just a general protocol. And a lot of times when I work one-on-one with my clients, I come up with custom protocols for them or for whatever it is that they're experiencing. So this is just like a general release of some of the stuck energy in your body, but let's talk about like what we just experienced. So I mentioned that I'm a stats nerd, right? Like I like stats, I like studies and things like that. One thing that I think is really fascinating is that just one tapping session, so just what we did just now, a 2012 study found that just one session can reduce the cortisol hormone in our bodies, which is the stress hormone, by 43%. So it's not just that we feel the tension less in our neck or in our shoulders or in our jaw. We can actually measure our cortisol before and after a tapping session and see a drop in cortisol, in that stress hormone. On top of that, we actually also will see a decrease in symptoms of anxiety and depression. So this is a nearly more than half reduction of symptoms without medication. When I went through my really high conflict divorce while I was pregnant, when my ex told me he wanted a divorce, you know, I was so distraught. I was so hormonal. I actually reached out to a suicide hotline. And I obviously chose to live. I chose my life. I chose my daughter's life. But I was able to heal from that depression that I went through and all that stuff without medication by using this tapping, and this energy psychology that I practice. And lastly, the other thing that many people experience is a nervous system reset. So after tapping, a lot of participants report feeling calmer, clearer, and more in control. And that literally happened in less than 10 minutes for us. And what I love about this is that when we're feeling more calm, more clear, and more in control, we can avoid making those bad decisions. Like, yes, I had a feeling and a thought to do something extreme, like ending, my life. But when I was able to tap, I was also able to come to a place where I was more able to make decisions that I wasn't going to regret, if that makes sense. So when we tap, when we do this energy psychology, we can actually see ourselves making better decisions, doing things we're less likely to regret later. And I think that that's really powerful for us as well. And so this is my little guest speaker. She wants to come inside my little pouch, I guess. She's under two. Her name is Olive. So like I mentioned, I used to be a chef, and I'm a pizza lover, so I named her after a pizza topping. Just kidding. It also means olives are also a sign of peace and victory, and that's what that was some of the inspiration behind her name. So your body holds on to stress, and you just released some of it. So congratulations for feeling the difference. This is something really common that happens with my clients. So one of my clients, her name is Bianca. When we first started working together, she did like a free consultation with me. And I'm just going to move so that she can be comfortable. Bianca told me during our session that she was struggling with extreme anxiety, always feeling on edge. And I told her, I was like, okay, well, let's do a little bit of tapping. Let's see if this helps you, right? Let's do an experiment, basically, right? In just one session, she experienced a drop in her anxiety from a 9 to a 1. And what I love about that is she says, I was able to give her practical tools that she uses every single day to release and let go of those emotions that she used to be holding on to. And one of the things that's really powerful when you do this once, you can feel a physical release for that lasts. But every single day we have stressful things happen. We get a text that triggers us or something like that, right? When we do this consistently, we actually see a reprogramming of our subconscious mind. So a lot of the neural pathways that lead us towards anger, towards reacting in a certain way that we know doesn't really serve us, lead us towards addiction, can actually be reprogrammed by using this tapping so that we can choose and we can make more choices that we really want to. So these tools, like Bianca says here, these tools have been a game changer for me, providing a way to manage my anxiety and feel more at peace. So when we don't manage our stress, something that can happen for us is that we can have this experience of noticing a decrease in performance and a decrease in health, right? So what happens in our body when we have a lot of stress? So stress is really interesting. Since my burnout and extreme burnout and developing all that chronic and autoimmune disease, I looked into a lot of more stress because when I was getting sick, a lot of times I noticed that my doctors over and over again were asking me, well, are you really stressed out right now? Is there anything stressful going on in your life? And so at first I really focused on stress, and I was like, stress, that's the problem. That's why I'm so sick. It's because I live in this stressful city. It's because I have this stressful job. It's because of all this stress in my life that I don't feel well. Stress is the problem, right? And it's true, stress can be a problem, but there are also a lot of ways that stress can be really positive, right? So there are two forms of stress, one known as eustress, EUSTRESS, and distress, DISTRESS. And distress, like it sounds, is really negative. But we also can have a positive response from stress, and that positive response can be increased focus, right? So if you think about when you're stressed out, it triggers inside your body a survival response, right? Because you don't know what this stress threat is. Is it something, our body doesn't know, is this something that's deadly, or is this just like an email from our boss that pisses us off, right? And so when we have that experience, okay, you want to go down? Okay, go down. And so when we have that experience, our body doesn't know the difference, right? We're instantly sent into survival mode. So we go into fight, flight, fawn, or freeze. So a lot of people, they find themselves when they're stressed out, procrastinating, right? They find themselves starting fights or on edge, right? Some people find themselves fleeing, right? There are all these different experiences that we have when we're under stress that are related to our survival responses. And alongside that, right, like I was saying, the other side of that when we're experiencing eustress is one of those side benefits of being in survival mode is that we get hyper focused, right? We have like this increase in energy and focus and drive. And so that actually feels really addictive. But what happens is, in order for us to have that increased energy sent to our muscles, right? So we notice our heart pumping more, so we can move really quickly. If there were a saber-toothed tiger that was chasing us, we notice our heart pumping more, right? More blood. We notice our muscles are more tense. We have this increased focus, and ability to like see things, right? And that feeling, that increased performance, that eustress short term, can actually, because it can help us in some situations, it can feel really addictive, like I was saying. But the other side of that, the way that we get that increased energy or that shift in energy is not like it came from nowhere. What happens in order to produce that is our body shuts down long-term function in order to prioritize short-term function. And the reason that our body does that is because who cares if you can digest your food if you're not going to survive from this moment, right? So our body, in an effort to preserve resources, will actually move away from some of those long-term functions that it's doing in the background and focus on the short term. So some of those long-term functions that shut down include our immune system. So we get sick more often, right? We get the flu more often. You notice you may be more susceptible to illness when you're stressed out. On top of that, and it's like the worst time too, because you're like, I have so much to do, and now my body wants to get sick. Right. So it feels really frustrating. Our digestive system also can be affected because, again, it's another long-term system. So what that means is we might notice weight gain or weight loss, or we may notice issues like irritable bowel, right? So the longer that we live in chronic stress, the more that we experience not just distress, but dis-ease, right? And if you think about dis-ease as the opposite of ease, or the absence of ease, that's what happens when we're under stress. And even our hormonal function, our reproductive system shuts down because those are long-term functions while we're stressed out. So we may notice issues with our endocrine system. We may notice issues getting pregnant. All these different things show up for us when we're experiencing a lot of stress. And especially post-pandemic, many of us are living in a heightened state of stress that's just like chronic. And so we see a lot of these other issues, right? Like brain fog, physical pain, fatigue, burnout, like I was saying, disease, more chronic issues. And that was exactly what was going on for me. And perhaps, because I tend to be a really driven person, the other thing that really pissed me off about about my chronic stress was that it actually was affecting my performance as well. So it wasn't just affecting my health. I noticed myself, because I was relying on those bursts of stress to kind of push me forward because of that increased energy that was temporary. Long term, I noticed decreased focus, decreased clarity, decreased energy, decreased effectiveness, and decision-making skills. So while eustress has a positive short-term benefit, long-term stress always ends up having a really negative effect on us. And so this is where we notice things like the collective burnout that had been happening in many different stressful industries for many professions. So what I love about the tapping that we just did, so that's a form of energy psychology. I didn't share this slide for it this time, but this was all developed by a man named Dr. Roger Callahan back in the 1980s. So he was a clinical psychologist, and he kind of blended American philosophy about psychology with the Western philosophy of energy medicine, and noticed that by tapping on certain points on our body, that he could actually see a shift in his client's mental state. So he was the one who really kind of put together this idea that there's not just a mind-body system, but a mind-body energy system. What really drew me to this research first, to thought field therapy and to tapping in general, I mentioned being like a statistics person. Hold on, my daughter. Come here. Yeah. Oh. So when I was looking for healing healing modalities, I came across a study. She wants to nurse. Give me a moment. There you go. So um, while I was looking on my healing journey when I had the chronic stress and illness, I found these studies done on folks who had survived the Rwandan genocide. They were kids at the time. My now mentor, she had gone to Rwanda to work with these kids about 10, 15 years later. So they had grown up, and it was found that they were just like something was off, right? Like they didn't think that they had any problems, but they like somehow in society, like they weren't quite like productive. They were like having different issues. So my mentor worked with them. There were hundreds of them, and she was just there maybe for a week or so, and obviously needed to eat and do all the things. So she worked with these kids, individually. Now they were young adults, on their trauma. A lot of times because they were children, they at the time of the genocide, they also, similar to me, did not remember what happened. And that's something that our brain does when something is really traumatic. Sometimes it forgets because it's not safe. It doesn't feel safe for us to remember. So those kids had a similar experience where they often didn't remember what had happened to them exactly, or they didn't know their parents had shielded them from what happened. Nobody talked about it, kind of thing. With 9/11, I noticed something similar where like there were just so many people who experienced worse that like for a long time I didn't identify as a survivor. I didn't identify as a victim because I was like, well, there are other people who've been through so much worse than I've been through. They're the real survivors. And when I've spoken to and worked with people in Maui as well, sometimes they have that survivor's guilt as well of like, I'm not, who cares about what I went through? This person lost even more. So there's this comparison that can happen in survivor's guilt. But so these kids, she did some work with them in Rwanda. She flew back because she's based here in Honolulu. And she's a 70 or 80-year-old woman with lupus who still has her own business and is practicing because of the energy psychology tools that we use. So she came back a year later. She was going back to the villages to work with those kids again. And she noticed that when she returned that they were fine. Like they were like, actually, we're good. We've reintegrated into society, like they were no longer committing crime. They were no longer, just causing issues in the community. And they had such a positive experience that they had told all the other villages around them about it. So they had tons of people for my mentor to meet. Her name is Dr. Caroline Sakai. And they were just so excited to introduce her to all these more people, to more people who could experience this shift. So she's done a lot of work with prisoners, with orphanages. And what I love about this is that you really can experience this reset in stress. For me, in the way that I work with it, I like to use it for people who are highly motivated and tend to be high performers. What I love about it is that a lot of times as high performers, we don't have a lot of time. So we can actually see this shift happen in 15 minutes. And like I was saying, the more that if this becomes a regular practice, you can actually experience a reprogramming of your subconscious to create results, not just in the moment that you can feel, but lasting results, a lasting shift. It was really interesting. So when I became a single mom, my parents, I'm so grateful for them. They're based in New York, but they came out to help me more. And when I had left New York, they had known me a certain way. That was when I kind of started this shift to more of the healing work that I do. They knew me to be a really angry person, a negative mindset, right? Like the little girl that you saw in the very beginning. And what they found when they came here and they were spending time with me, I remember there was one time they borrowed my car and I told them I needed it back by a certain time. They weren't back by that time. I called them and I was like, hey, where are you? Like they're like, oh my gosh, we forgot. They came back and they were anticipating because they knew the older version of me. They'd spent 30 some years with me, right? As their child. They were expecting me to be really angry. They were expecting me to be really frustrated. When they came back, I was like, hey, how is everything? Like, did you guys have a good time? Okay, I'm going to take the car now. And I just left. They were expecting me to like to yell, to scream, because that was the person that they knew. And so it was probably the very first time that they realized, like, wow, something happened to Diana. She's not the same person that she used to be. So it's a really profound healing methodology that, again, helps in the moment, but really can have like lifelong transformational experiences. And that's a lot of what my clients get to experience. So Bianca, she didn't just feel a decrease in stress. What that allowed for her to do was actually perform even better in her business. So Bianca's a sales professional. She had a 10K monthly goal. She actually was able to double that goal in her production every single month once her anxiety got under control. And so she says, you know, I highly recommend Diana to anyone who needs help manifesting their dreams or who has anxiety. And another one of my clients, Jojo, so she says, you know, before she started working with me, she was skeptical because she tried a lot of different things and nothing had worked. So she didn't think that this was going to be any different, but she was willing to take a risk. And as a result, her life changed in ways that she never imagined. And this is a common theme for my clients. I never know how it's going to show up for them, but every single time, like my clients come to me when they do the consultation and they have a certain size dream, you know, for what they really want. And I tend to encourage them to dream even bigger wherever they're at. And they're like, no, there's no way, like that just seems ridiculous, but they're willing to go along with thinking a little bigger, dreaming a little bigger, wishing for even more. And by the end of the 6 months that we worked together, they've accomplished so much that they realize that the dream that we worked on in the very beginning is actually a small dream. And so they're actually ready for an even bigger dream just 6 months after working together. So I just want to give you this opportunity. If you want this to be the change and the turning point in your life, this is a way to reach that next level freedom. So you can book a consultation call with me. I opened up some time in my calendar over the next 2 weeks for a personalized consultation. This is an opportunity for you to take control of stress, to boost your performance, to really experience results. And I do have a couple spots, like I said, that are limited. I'd love to talk to you if you feel like, oh, I'd love to, but I just don't know, this talk is for you. This opportunity is for you. And I just want to say, you know, if you know that this isn't for you, but if you work with people in high stress or high conflict situations, I do have a version of this talk on my website that you can invite somebody to do. It's a 30-minute talk where I talk about chronic stress, and it's a masterclass that they can attend for free as well. So if this opportunity is not for you, but you know somebody who could benefit from some stress release, that could be a great opportunity for you to invite them to check out my website, which is just www.dianabejasa.com. So first name, last name.com. And I'll put that link into the chat. So that's my consultation link. That is my website if they want to check out the masterclass. And just to kind of close the loop on Jojo's experience, as a result of us working together, this is what she said. So I'm so proud of myself for doing what I thought I couldn't do. This program has proven effective for me, and it's transformed my outlook on life. If you're considering it, I highly recommend taking the leap. I've seen my clients transform family relationships, decades of trauma or challenges. I've seen health transformations. I had a client with vitiligo who noticed just in those 6 months that we worked together, noticed her color coming back. So there's all forms of healing that happen, not just on a professional level where we can achieve even greater, but on a physical level that can happen when we're using a self-healing technique like this. So I do want to give us a little bit of time as well for questions, and I'm going to leave this link, this QR code up. So if you want to book a session, I did open up some evening times as well. So yeah, there's some weekend times, there's some evening times in the next 2 weeks. Typically, I tend to be really protective of my schedule, but I wanted to offer that as an opportunity for you guys.
Okay, if anyone has any questions about what you experienced, about the TFT or EFT process, if any of that was successful for you, or if you enjoyed that, now's your time to ask Diana some questions. Feel free to unmute yourself or feel free to put something in the chat.
Hi, Can I ask a question? Thank you for the presentation. That was really cool. Thank you. Do you recommend doing this? Is it like a daily thing, or do you recommend doing it in the morning or the evening? And then is 15 minutes like the recommended minimum time to do the tapping?
Um, I would say that that the best time to do it is when you feel really stressed or when you feel
Okay.
like really angry or triggered or any of those things, because the emotion is most strong. So the point where the emotion is most strong is the time when you want to relieve that negative emotion in your body. Uh, After that, once you've kind of done a little bit of that work, when I work with people long term, I do invite them to do more tapping during the morning or in the evening. That's more like kind of like taking them out of survival mode and taking them, like kicking them up to the next level. And part of the reason I recommend the morning or the evening, that's when we actually have most access to our subconscious mind. And the reason for that, right, is we're moving from sleep to an awake state or an awake state to a sleep state. And our subconscious is running the show when we're in the sleep state, right? Our conscious mind is running the show when we're awake. So if we want to actually do a lot of subconscious reprogramming, I recommend doing it during that time because it's most effective. We have I guess the most access to our subconscious at those times. Does that answer your question, Sinclair?
Yeah, it does. Thank you very much. Oh, wait, so it's 50, if we, is what, can we go 20 or is that too long? Or is it like 15 is like what you should be
I
doing?
I state 15 minutes because it can be 15 minutes or less. So
Oh,
there are certain
okay.
medications I can do for 5 minutes and experience a shift. Um, when I do things pointed or targeted for somebody, it can be really effective in a short period of time.
Okay, so if I just have 5 minutes, I can just do 5 minutes and that's beneficial.
Yeah. Yeah, it's kind of like brushing your teeth. Maybe the dentist tells you, it's supposed to be 2 or 3 minutes a day. But even if you just do it for a little bit, like it's better than not brushing your teeth at all.
Thank you. Thanks for sharing your story and that technique. I'll be using this. Thank you.
Awesome. I'm glad to hear that, Sinclair. Thank you.
We have a question. How has the current climate of the American world affected your clients or your work? From clergy and government, social media, the youth.
Yeah. We notice, I know I'm not the only one to notice more mental health issues, more stress, more burnout happening, and especially post-COVID. And one of the ways that I kind of look at this, just big picture in terms of our world, is that what COVID did to all of us was it put us all into a heightened level of stress, right? Like a survival state, because we all were not sure if we were going to make it through. It was a global pandemic that reached everybody. And one of the things that many of us did to feel some form of control, because it felt like we were losing control, was to turn to the news. The news is a really interesting thing because it's a business. It's designed to it's designed to make money, and how they make money is by having your attention and your eyeballs and your focus for longer and longer. Same with social media. So one of the things that it behooves the news to do, and one of the things that it benefits social media to do, is to trigger your stress response, right? Because you're going to pay attention if you feel like, oh, this thing is going to give me more control. It's going to give me more peace. And what it ends up doing is, like, we feel that momentary sense of control. Like, I noticed my parents really tuned to the news with everything that was going on with COVID. We're like, it's like, do you really need to know if toilet paper ran out in Tennessee? If you're in New York, like, it doesn't really matter. But people felt a sense of control through information. But again, the news knew that, and so they would tell us these stories that would stoke this feeling or get us to tune in, right? And that's just the business side of the news. That's just the business side of social media. They make money off of our attention. So when they stoke our stress, when they do those sort of things, it means money in their pocket. But physiologically, in terms of our nervous system, what it means is that we live at a higher level of stress. Now, a lot of times I mentioned my master class, I talk about stress like an addiction. And given my high performer nature, right, I worked on Wall Street, I worked in Michelin starred kitchens. When I switched to chef work, I used to say I thrive under stress. And why I mention that is because what that really means is it like when we look at stress like an addiction, at first we get that that positive stress feeling when we just have a little bit, right? Like we get that increased focus, that drive, that quickness about us. But what happens when we have an addiction is that we need more and more and more of it to get the same hit. So what's happening in our world right now, post-COVID, I find, is that people don't realize how addicted we are to stress, and they're needing more and more and more of a hit, more and more things. So a lot of times, like, when I talk about stress, people are like, oh, I feel less stressed now. I cleared my schedule. A lot of times what people who clear their schedule will do, if you create time for relaxation, is then they fill up all that time with things to do because they don't feel comfortable in doing nothing, in relaxing. So relaxation feels really uncomfortable. It feels like a threat, right? So we go back to what we think is comfortable, which is living in the state of stress where we feel, just bombarded and overwhelmed. We almost cause it for ourselves. So that's a lot of what I see now with my clients, is that, they have these, they're noticing these, like, that they're experiencing like a decrease in mental health, or they're noticing more and more women are finding and being diagnosed with chronic illness, autoimmune disease. These are all, again, in my opinion, from what I found, related to our overall stress.
Does that answer your question, Genevieve? Hopefully. We do have a request. The link you mentioned on your website about the 30-minute video, they said that the link isn't working. If we can post, if you can post that into the chat so they can check out that video.
Yeah, let me find it. I'm gonna stop share just so I can get the link. Thank you for letting me know about that. I gotta fix that. Beep beep. Uh-oh, we gotta go soon.
And then we have someone saying, where can we find which points match with which effects?
I can create a PDF with that information on it, and I can send that to you, Shelby. So
Okay.
if you're not able to reach, I noticed that my my redirect is not working. I'm gonna have to work on that. But if you go to www.saveourlifewithdiana.com, you'll find a link to the masterclass there. I just double checked that it's working. So yeah, you can find out more about like stress, how it shows up in our patterns, how it affects us really, and, like, again, doesn't just affect us mentally, physically, but also in terms of our external results. Thank you, Patty. I've had a chance to do a call with Patty before. Yeah, it's a transformational experience. So I'd love to do a call with you.
Okay, thank you so much, everyone, for coming. And thank you so much for joining us, Diana. I'm sure everyone found a lot of value in your talk today, and will continue to use these techniques in the coming months. So thank you so much, everyone. As a reminder, please just take a few minutes to fill out our short survey online and let Diana and us know how you enjoyed our talk today. And just as a reminder, this greatly helps with our grant funding for this free series. So we will also be sending you an email shortly with that PDF from Diana, as well as that survey link and the video in case you'd like to rewatch. So thank you all for coming, and we'll see you next time.
Thank you.